Good evening. My name is Steve Hernandez, and I'm the Executive Director of the Legislature's Nonpartisan Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity. I would like to welcome our Facebook Live viewers and also people who may be watching this on CTN on a loop. We are here today to host a virtual forum in honor of Black History Month. This is a series of forums that we are hosting to celebrate the month in which we focus our attention on the African American community and their contributions to the everyday life of the state and the country and the world. Today we're focusing on Black entrepreneurial leaders in the African American community, and we are so honored to have an esteemed panel of participants today. I'm going to mention their names, but I'm going to have them introduce themselves shortly as well, because in the magic of Zoom, when you speak, your face comes to the forefront and we all get to see you. The panelists today will include Dr. Fred McKinney, who is professor at Quinnipiac University in the state of Connecticut, Dr. G. Duncan Harris, Chief Executive Officer at Capital Community College, our flagship community college here in the state of Connecticut, Roberta Hosky, American real estate broker and founder and CEO of Outreach Realty, Servicing and Outreach School of Real Estate. YG Williams, small business owner of Uniquely Cleaned LLP. Senator Douglas McCrory, representing Connecticut's 2nd District, which includes Northern Hartford, Bloomfield, and Windsor. Representative Robin Porter, representing Connecticut's 94th District and the towns of New Haven and Hamden. And last but certainly not least, Representative Bobby Gibson, representing Connecticut's District 15 towns of Bloomfield and Windsor. Welcome everyone. I'd like to start by allowing each of you to just to say hello and a couple of words of what it means to support Black business and Black entrepreneurship in the state of Connecticut. And then we're going to then go to a presentation by Dr. Fred McKinney, who will give us a little bit more framing. So welcome. Let's start. I'm going to acknowledge you as I see you. So let's start with Dr. Duncan Harris. Good to see you, sir.
Hey, glad to be here. Good evening, everybody. And it's indeed an honor in this month as we celebrate Black history to participate in this evening's panel. And we're aware of the key role that Black businesses play in the success and vitality of our community. So glad to be here tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez, for this phenomenal panel. I have the honor of sitting on tonight in celebration of Black History Month. You know, it's power to the people. It's important because when we create a strong workforce, we create strong families. And when we create strong families, we create strong communities. And it is our time. So I'm excited to be here to talk about how we can advance this particular movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Porter. I know you're shy, but you are also the co-chair of the Labor Committee in the Connecticut State Legislature. Very relevant leadership. So welcome. YG Williams.
Hi, yes, thank you guys so much for having us, a small business. The importance of this is just words can't even say, because as a small business, just with the lack of knowledge, the lack of resources, having a panel like this, getting the information out that, what it takes, what process you have to go through, what procedures you have to go through is so critical to the Black business, the small Black business to thrive. So again, thank you guys for having us.
Thank you, Ms. Williams, and thank you for framing it that way, because today really, in addition to being a celebration, it's also a resource conversation so that our viewers can watch, learn, and see how it is that you in your own ways have become leaders of industry in the state of Connecticut, how you did it, and how they might do it as well. So thank you for that. Representative Bobby Gibson, good to see you, sir.
Good evening, Stephen. How are you?
Good to see you. Thank you.
Good. And good evening to my esteemed and so powerful co-panelists tonight. I am Representative Bobby Gibson. Yes, I represent the 15th District, which is Bloomfield and Windsor. I am the Vice Chair of the General Law Committee. I serve as co-chair of the Conservation and Development Subcommittee for Appropriations. I'm also on the Education Committee. And I am the proud co-chair of the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus. So it is outstanding to be here tonight. I'll just lead off with this. I found out in some of our toughest times, people of color, but since this is Black History Month, we're talking about Black people. During some of the toughest times is when we found our entrepreneurial skills. And I'm sure that that's going to come out tonight during this pandemic, that we found a way to actually make it through and to make it for the best. So again, I'm happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Representative. I see that we're joined by Senator McCrory. I'll be right back with you, Senator McCrory. We're doing introductions and just saying a little bit about the importance of Black leadership in business. Ms. Hosky, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Happy Black History Month. We are super excited. I know I'm excited to be on this panel today with so many powerful people within our community. I'm just excited that we're having this today. Thank you for everyone for putting this together. It is important as entrepreneurs that we continue to foster the growth of entrepreneurs, especially in the African American community. I've been an entrepreneur since 2004. Yes, 2004. I know I look 17 or 18. You don't have to tell me that. I already know. But I have been in business for a very long time in the real estate industry. And we have weathered the storms. And as we're going to get more discussion about the storms that you weather as being an entrepreneur and the different cycles that we will encounter as being an entrepreneur. I'm the president and CEO of Outreach Realty Services, president and CEO of Outreach School of Real Estate, which is a licensed real estate company that's licensed in Connecticut with reciprocity in 11 other states. I am also the founder of the Millionaire Mindset Sisterhood, which is an international sisterhood. We have chapters in the United States as well as Dominican Republic, Ghana, and Kenya. Recently launched the 1,000 Black Families Home Ownership Initiative with the goal of creating generational wealth and closing the long-standing systemic wealth gap by fast-tracking the home ownership process. My passion about real estate comes from my story of literally being at one point homeless in my life. But one of my companies, which is Outreach Realty Services, alone has touched and changed over 7,000 properties. So it's an honor for me to be here for you today and to be a resource for you on your journey of being an entrepreneur. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hosky, and thank you for your energy. You know, those are the concepts that you bring up, which is wealth, community building, Black community. Those are the concepts that we want to see together all the time. I love the idea of talking about wealth building in our communities. So thank you for saying that. And Senator Doug McCrory, welcome, Senator.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. I am in the middle of two different things going on at the same time, so please beg my pardon. Senator McCrory represents Hartford, Bloomfield, Windsor. My background, education-wise, I've been a educator in the state of Connecticut for 30 years, but my true background is I have an economics degree, and I also have a master's degree in business administration. And I also, as a young Black boy growing up in Hartford, North End, I watched my dad, who was an entrepreneur all his life. And I know the trials and tribulations that entrepreneurs experience, especially Black entrepreneurs. I'm efforting in every capacity I can to make sure that Black folks get access to capital, loans, and all those things they need to do to be successful. I am also a little historian, and I've been reading about on our history and how we propel, how we grab ourselves from our bootstraps at the end of 1865 and build our own communities, build our own businesses, and did it all our own without any banking support or anyone else. So we know we can do it then. We should be able to do it now. But we're not going to be able to do anything if we don't get the support from government, because government helped other people get to where they were and did nothing for us. It is our time now. And I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McCrory. You know, you remind us, first of all, thank you for multitasking, but you also remind us that being an entrepreneur isn't just a title on your business card. It's a set of skills and opportunities, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So thank you for reminding us of that, Senator. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Fred McKinney, I'm going to turn to you, Dr. McKinney, not only to introduce yourself, but also to start giving us a little bit of background, a little bit of framing for our conversation today as we start the evening. So welcome, Dr. McKinney.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, and I want to also thank all of the really special guests that are participating in this very important program today. I know most of them, I know all of their work, and they are doing great work for the citizens of Connecticut, and it's greatly appreciated. My role, I believe, in this program is to give a little history, but also some context to the issue of Black entrepreneurship and leadership. And I think the first and probably the most important thing that I can say is that Black folks in Connecticut have a long history in being successful entrepreneurs and innovators. And so we come from a rich background. And I think we have to say that because I think too many people sometimes feel that, well, we've never done anything, and nothing could be further from the truth. So I just want to tell a few stories about a couple of entrepreneurs, famous entrepreneurs in Connecticut, from Connecticut, that have made a lasting impact on American society and may not be as well known as other entrepreneurs. And then I want to talk a little bit about the whole process of entrepreneurs. But before I begin, I'm going to have to follow up on Roberta's comments about her being an entrepreneur since 2004. I've been an entrepreneur since 1964. And when I was a 10-year-old kid in Washington, D.C., I had a paper route. I also picked up bottles and delivered them to the store and got money. That's how I got money. And I shoveled snow, raked the yards, did all of that. And, you know, they say that necessity is the mother of invention. And entrepreneurs respond to stress and struggle by figuring out a way to get from here to there. And we have a rich history in our culture of figuring out how to get from here to there. Now, some entrepreneurs in our Connecticut history, Black entrepreneurs in our Connecticut history that I think are noteworthy. One is Lewis Latimer. Now, Lewis Latimer was a scientist who worked with Thomas Edison. And so, in fact, Latimer was responsible for making the major breakthrough in the development of the electric light bulb. And so, you know, all of us right now are sitting in a room with some electric light coming in and illuminating our space. Well, that work was largely led by a team of scientists and innovators, and one of those was Lewis Latimer from Bridgeport. Another person that I'd like to sort of bring forward is a man by the name of William Lanson. And in the 19th century, Lanson was a stone cutter. He was a mason. He was the most demanded mason in Connecticut. And so when Long Wharf was built, they went to him. So that's another example of great Black entrepreneurs and innovators. And he made a lot of money. So he wasn't just doing it, but so he was a real businessman. Another person I'd like to finally bring up is Edward Boucher. Now, Edward Boucher lived in the late 19th century. His father had been a slave, and his father was brought to Yale by his father's owner. And back in those days, Yale, the slaveholding Yaleys would bring one of their valets with them and would take care of their stuff when they were at Yale. Well, this guy's Ed Boucher's father was a slave. He was freed eventually, but while in New Haven, he went to Hopkins and was #1 in his class. Then went to Yale on a scholarship and graduated in 3.5 years. And from that, he went on and earned a PhD in physics. So he was the third American to hold a PhD in physics. And so, but again, we've got this history of performance, of excellence, of being able to solve technical problems, but also being able to solve human problems. But we cannot forget that over top of all of this is a regime of racism, discrimination, and slavery in some cases that held these men and women down, and they were not able to reach their full potential. So first of all, we have a rich tradition in this state of great success, of very brilliant people who worked in all kinds of businesses and the sciences. So that's a tradition. So in terms of entrepreneurship, again, as I said earlier, necessity is the mother of invention. And I think that our history here also tells us that we had plenty of problems. And if you look at all of the problems that were thrown at Black people in this country throughout our history, there's an action and there's a reaction. And so you think about slavery. There was an action of slavery. The reaction was get out of here. And so we found ways to get out. We also found ways to survive in these very difficult environments. So during the period of slavery, Black folks who didn't want to work on the farm were sometimes picked out because of their intelligence to do different things. And so you had a tradition, not just in the South, but in the North, where skilled workers were Black folks. I think it was stated during the uprising, the rebellion on January 6th, several times during that coverage, that slaves built the Capitol, okay? We talk about having problems getting Black contractors. Well, we have a history of building things. And so we need to really rely on that history to move us forward. Now, in terms of entrepreneurship, one of the barriers, so my feeling is we got this very positive movement in terms of our innate abilities, the drive that we have, but we're confronting struggle. And the struggle is that life has not been fair to us. And so Roberta talks about housing and home ownership. Well, we know in entrepreneurship that the biggest source of capital for entrepreneurs is their home. So I was talking to my students this week about redlining in Hartford. And you can go to the history and see in Hartford, in New Haven, in Waterbury, and all of these Connecticut towns, the real estate agents, the banks, all the way up until the 50s and even into the early 60s had designated areas in these towns where you could not sell to Black people. Well, if you can't sell to Black people in areas of the town where housing prices are appreciating, you're not building wealth. You also are suppressing pricing in those Black communities. And so that's institutional racism that has a direct impact on the success of Black entrepreneurs. But we have to overcome those challenges, and that's where our elected officials come in, because they can address these things. They can make those wrongs right. And so we're still fighting this struggle of access to capital. And that's a big barrier today for Black entrepreneurs. But I'm an optimist. I believe firmly that we can teach Black kids how to harness their innate drive to be successful business people. And I think that we should be teaching business in the second grade. We should be teaching these young people how to make money. If you teach them how to make money, they'll learn math, they'll learn science, they'll learn history, they'll learn geography, they'll learn marketing, they'll learn finance, they'll learn all that stuff. And guess what? They'll learn to read, they'll learn to write, they'll learn to communicate, and they will learn to be great citizens of this state and this country. So I really think that we have to put this entrepreneurial effort, it should be a movement to drive entrepreneurship in our community. And so with that, Steve, I'm going to turn it back over to you and our illustrious panel.
Thank you, Dr. McKinney. What's the old saying? Teach a girl to fish and she'll build you a rocket to fly to the moon, right? And that's really the idea here. It's understanding the key role of early education in supporting those entrepreneurial skills, which, as you said, builds up that interest in so many of our different disciplines, but most importantly, in seeing yourself as a center of gravity for economic security and success for yourself and for your community. So I'd like to turn to a couple of our entrepreneurs, our business owners. I'm going to start with you because I think your experiences are going to help frame for our viewers the experience of the entrepreneur, how it is that you have built where you are today. Let's start with you, YG Williams. Let's tell us a little bit about how you started your business, your early origins with entrepreneurship, and how it is that you came to be where you are today.
Yes, so I can say I have a story quite like Mr. McKinney, where I started very young. I had a babysitting business. I remember the Trumbull Mall allowed you to make business cards. And I went and made some business cards that I would babysit $3 an hour. At 11, I was working with my dad as a switchboard operator for the cab company, making $5 an hour. And it was funny because they had a sign that said that minimum wage was $4.15 at the time. And I realized that I was making more than minimum wage at that moment. And I worked with him for a while. And then my dad is really I think the first entrepreneur that I really got to see in my family, because even though he worked a full-time job, he also had, what we consider the side hustle, which was the lawn keeping and snow removal. So we worked with him on that. And then eventually he made that into, a legitimate business. So I've always, had that around me, never really putting all those pieces together. Always was in the business field, was in the administrative field for over 20 years before we opened this business. We actually, my husband and I opened this business because we had a family member that was coming out of incarceration, that had been incarcerated for a long period of time. And we just didn't want them to have to go through the whole stigma of, looking for work. And, he was a felon and that whole thing. So we were like, well, what business can we start? And, for him, so he doesn't have to have those doors slammed in his face. And we started the business while he was still incarcerated, and the business kind of took off. So I kind of said to my husband, like, look, I'm working full time. I'm doing this business full time. One has to go. Either we're going to fully believe in this business and do this, or, we're going to have to put it on the back burner. And so with his support, I was able to, quit my full-time job at that time and go full-time into this business. And then with the family member, the business didn't quite work out for that, but it was still an opportunity for us to help people that were in that similar situation. And that's what we've done. We call ourselves the equal opportunity employer. We hire everyone. It doesn't matter. Felons, if you have some time off in your resume where you weren't stay-at-home moms, high school students. We actually partner with Naugatuck Youth Services there, and we have youth employees from high school. And we don't just have them come and work for us, but we actually teach them business. We teach them everything it takes to run a business, from the going out to bidding for a job, for just the whole thing. So by the time they're done, they not only, have made some money, but they also have gained some knowledge on, real business and how it looks in real life.
Oh, thank you so much, Ms. Williams. We're going to come back to you in a second, but I love that notion of when you work for yourself, you live for yourself. And so often when we think about workforce strategy and employment strategy in the state of Connecticut, we're often thinking about it from the perspective of how do we fill somebody else's seats that may need someone to pull a lever or push a button, rather than how do we support you in being your own boss and the driver of your own destiny. And so I love the way that you described that. Thank you so much. Ms. Hosky, I now want to turn to you just to give us your experience and how it is that you came to be the businesswoman that you are.
So I wish I could say that I had an example in my family, but I'm actually the first entrepreneur in my family. I did not have that example. What happened with me is that I was working in New York, and I had a good job. Like I had a really good job. I had a 6-figure job. I had a chauffeur and everything, but my children were young. And I remember coming home one day and my daughter was walking, and I totally missed it. So that did something to me. I realized that I did not have control over my time. And the most important thing to me is family. And so that really bothered me. And at the same time, my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, and she was watching my children. So there was an emotional battle going on. But also at that time, I was already in real estate. So even though I was working, I already started flipping real estate. So I was making about 6 figures flipping properties every 90 days. So I was making my annual salary like every 90 days flipping these properties. The other thing is that at Albert Einstein, I was working there for 2 years. And in 2 years, I was able to bring the company $20 million in grants and contracts. So I figured if this intellectual property can create $20 million for an organization, what can I do for myself? And that financial freedom is what I thirst after because of my family. And the other thing is, when I got started, it was what I'm sure many of our viewers and people who are watching us who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs, I'm going to describe something that you may be going through right now. And that thing is having the faith to really believe in your business structure, your business model, and believing in what you have to offer the world. And so I literally had to put on blindfolders, right? And not leave a $10 an hour, $20, $50 an hour job, right? A 6-figure job after at one point I was homeless, I was on welfare. So it looked like I made it. But I urge you all, especially entrepreneurs, you're gonna have this little feeling inside of you, this little thing that's gonna be tugging at you. And so I paid attention to that little thing that was tugging at me, even though it didn't make sense to people. And so entrepreneurs are risk takers. We're calculated risk takers, but you have to follow your internal GPS system. And for me, because I am faith-based, and anyone that knows me know I'm gonna say that I believe that God is the design of what things that I do. So because of that, I don't look at, and I want you all to hear this, I don't look at the business as a simple business. I really look at it from the lens of the Ministry of Health. So that is why each business that I have ever created was created to help someone else. So the property management company was to help people become investors, because I was already a real estate investor. I was already making millions, right? And so I already did that, but I looked at my community. I looked at my family, and I'm like, why aren't they doing what I'm doing? And then I thought, well, I've heard people say they don't want to get in real estate because they don't want to deal with the tenants. Created a property management company. Every business, I repeat this, every business that was ever created was created to solve a problem. So as entrepreneurs, we're problem solvers. And so I use that business with the property management, and the real estate market crashed. The other thing with entrepreneurs, you got to be able to navigate your market. So when the real estate markets crashed, right? So many businesses went out. And here I am. You said, I already told you I was here since 2004. I don't weather those storms. It's because you have to be able to shift with your market. And so when the real estate market crashed in 2007 and 2009, I was able to tap into rentals and things of that nature, the things that were on the uprise. So to get started, I had to conquer my fear, really listen to that internal GPS system, know how to navigate that market, and understand that I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve I'm here to solve problems for as many people possible. At first, it started with my community, then it started with my state, then it started with my country, and now I'm solving problems internationally. And that's just me continually following that internal GPS system that each and every entrepreneur has. Once you get over your fear factor and out your comfort zone.
Ms. Hosky, that is so powerful. You know, just this notion that everything you've just described is a series of decisions that you made, that what you called calculated risks,
yes,
that you made for yourself. I never once heard you say, you know, I knew I needed to get my MBA from Yale. You know, it was a series of decisions that you made that have made you powerful and successful. And I love that. And I also love what you said about your intellectual property. If this intellectual property can do this for somebody else, I can certainly do it for myself. And that is a perfect frame for our conversation next, Dr. Harris, because when I see your students at the college and when I see our kids in the neighborhood, I think about the intellectual property that is in those young people that is ready to blossom. So tell us a little bit about your approach, Dr. Harris, at the community college, and how it is that you help promote that intellectual property.
Yeah, great segue. And one of the things that you had mentioned before when we were opening up was about the skills coupled with opportunities. And what suggests entrepreneurship is a skill that can be learned how to do it well. So at community college, it suggests any of your this gem that is the community will all train to how to do it, to talk and money, people's money to make money yourself. Strictly a good business. The community focuses on finance and marketing, to that nature. So I do think that we're in a common thread that the building of this is something that can be learned, and that there are skills that connect successful business. And part of it is having to network. Right? And when you talk about the talent that exists within our communities, and I think this ties back, Dr. McKinney was suggesting, is that we've always had it. We harvest it in ways and individuals with businesses and this idea of working for our generate for our one of the things that was that we have the entrepreneur. And we also have a certificate that we offer to individuals.
Dr. Harris, your connection is a little spotty, and I just want to make sure that we hear every single word.
Okay. And what can you hear me now? It sounds like the commercial. But as we talk about the skills that are necessary to be successful in business, that's something that you need to college. And accounting and communication, marketing, your own. One of the things that we are here is a degree in honor, right? So individuals could come, we'll teach the skills that are to a viable business yourself. And so, and whether that's at Capitol, or it could be at Gateway in New Haven. I see Representative Porter here, that when you are seeking to acquire the skills necessary to do that at your local community college, right? And so the other thing that we have is that for that an individual is interested in forming their own construction business, right? Or cybersecurity, that perhaps you come to acquire the skills, to business model, and you can acquire those also at your local community college, right? And so I think that we're an on-ramp into the world of entrepreneurship, and that we would help individuals build out that plan that allows to provide for themselves and their families, and that's kind of what we do in our middle name. So the last thing I'll say in that is we also have credit and non-pieces. So there might be an element of your business that you want to improve upon or develop. And so you kind of an entire degree or there may be not options which allow you to refine a particular area of the business that you're interested in. And so, as you begin to build out this plan, the success plan for you building your own business, I encourage folks to connect with their local community colleges.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. And you were a little spotty in the beginning, but I want to just underscore Capital Community College's business management entrepreneurship program that helps students launch and improve their own businesses. What's really powerful about that is that you see the asset that is the particular skill set, right? Do you want to know more about the construction business? Do you want to know more about real estate? Do you want to know more about any particular avenue of business? But you pour into all of those disciplines the undergirder that is entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is what takes each and every one of those skills to the next level. So I really appreciate that framing, and I appreciate, as I said, the on-ramping role that a community college can have in seeking that type of skill set. I'm going to come back to you more on that. But Representative, as I think, think of you as one of the, you called yourself a member of the Education Committee, but I've watched how it is that you have extended our understanding and our fuller understanding of the context of history of the state of Connecticut and of the potential of the children, of Black children in the state of Connecticut. I've seen you promote that. So I'm wondering, how do we start imbuing some of this interest early on in our young people on entrepreneurship and attaining some of these skill sets that are going to really last you a lifetime? How do we do that early?
I'm sorry, Stephen, was that question for me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I think you borrowed some of Dr. Harris's internet just then. You're a little spotty. But I'll try my best to answer that question. You guys got to forgive me. Dr. Harris and I went to high school together, so we were playing for Warhawks. We know each other for a long time. So, thank you for that question. Because my day job, I am an educator. I teach in Bloomfield, Connecticut School District. I'm actually in my building right now. Throughout my career, I've been a science educator. And as I'm listening to everyone talk here tonight, I'm soaking it in, because I would love to use what I'm learning from Sister Williams and Sister Hosky with my students. And I'm sure Senator McCrory, there's some law legislation that he and Treasurer Wooden are going to try to pass. I'm not going to take his thunder. But our kids need all of the encouragement that we can give them to become entrepreneurs. Two things were said today. Ms. Williams said, you got to have a side hustle, right? We've all heard that. And it's true. And for Ms. Hosky, she talked about faith and intellectual property. I will actually mold that a little bit and talk about our kids have to become intellectual engineers. And again, from my science background, I will say this, what do engineers do? They solve problems and they improve things. And during times of a pandemic such as this, we have to tap into their creativity to be able to expose them to things so they can learn things. So for example, just the other day, I took my daughter to one of her friends' pop-up shops. I'm sure you guys have heard that. If you have not, is when kids come, like everyone's shaking their head. So for the audience out there, is when kids have things they want to sell, they get a empty space or they rent a space and they set up tables and booths and they become little entrepreneurs and they sell their products. And it's fascinating and it's fabulous. And it's because of, everyone's not going to the mall. Times of the store hours are not as vast as they were. And so lo and behold, something as simple as, you go into a vendor on the street or at a function, now you have these pop-up shops. So, we have to make sure that we take this energy and this spirit that we have and not let this pandemic hold us down. Make sure that we build it up in our kids. It's funny because a bill that Senator McCrory and Rep. Porter and I, we passed 2 years ago was the Black and Latino History Bill. And when I go speak about that bill, I speak about a former prince who was captured in Africa. His name was Venture Smith. And he was brought over as a slave. And one of the things that he did, not only did he help build the fabric of this country by working, but he started his own business. And he didn't let his fact that he was a former slave, the fact that he had to buy his freedom, the fact that he had to buy his family's freedom, hold him down. He started his own business, and he contributed to United States. He contributed to the building of this country, interwoven into the fabric of what this country has become. So I would just say, as an educator, I'm still listening, and I'm open to hear anything that is said tonight, because again, you're going to be surprised out of this pandemic what comes out. And again, since we're talking about Black folks, and we've always been entrepreneurs, whether it's we had to sell newspapers or cook food, or open up our own cleaning business. Ms. Williams, you know what? It's fascinating to understand that's your business. I remember playing high school football. I'm gonna try to keep this short, but it's inspiring. I remember playing high school football with I'm gonna just say Ronald. Ronald's father owned a cleaning business. Ronald started to work in his father's cleaning business. And you know how silly kids can be. Oh, Ronald, you're cleaning, you're doing this, you're doing that. When Ronald showed up in a brand new car and had people working for him and had his own business and had his own office, they weren't laughing then. So, go for your dream, have the faith, use your intellectual property, and, work your side hustle. And so, again, I'm glad to be here, and I'm going to pass this on to my students.
Thank you so much, Representative Gibson. I love the notion of the side hustle, and I also love that example that you gave about freedom. In so many ways, every generation of under-resourced, underserved people have to reclaim their freedom, every generation. And the way to do that, the way that many of you have described doing that, is through the tools and the skill set of entrepreneurship. That is how you break the chains of oversight, the chains of historical oppression, and really regain our generational freedom. So thank you for putting it in that context. It's really, really powerful, sir. I'm going to come back to Senator McCrory because I don't see him. Oh, there he is. So Senator McCrory, I have to say, for the benefit of our viewers, is not only, as he said, the co-chair of our education committee in the state of Connecticut, a powerful committee, made even more powerful just by the necessity of the work that is before us, but also a leader and entrepreneur himself. So Senator McCrory, I want to welcome you because you in so many ways hold some of these keys for helping our young people access this skill set.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll be brief because I do got a hard stop in like 3 minutes. So Representative Gibson was talking about some of the things we want to do from an education perspective. And one of the things we want to do is teach our kids financial literacy. So teach our kids financial literacy at a very early age. In very wealthy communities, high resource community, I should say, they're teaching their children about economics at a very early age. They understand the value of a dollar, where it comes from, and how it's managed. In our community, we need to do the same thing. But we also need to put a caveat on it because in Connecticut, we live in silos, right? I mean, Black and brown people live in only certain areas of Connecticut. That's a fact. That's historic racism, structural racism. That's how we live. But we need to learn how to spend money within our own community, support businesses in our own community. Like I said, we've been doing this from a very long time. And I think we got fooled when we thought that America was going to allow us to integrate into their economy. Right. So we need to build our business and create our own economy so we don't have to depend on other people for everything. Clearly, we can't get everything by ourselves. But if we start teaching our kids at a very early age, not just to go on, graduate and go to college and get a job and work for someone else, but go on and graduate and learn everything you need to do so you can come back and open up a successful business in your community. And therefore, that's how we can prosper as a group. And lastly, I'll say again, with my economics background, my business administration, myself and Dr. Floyd McKinnon, we're working on some things on an MBI level where we can get access. One of the biggest problems we have in our community is not ideas. It's access to capital, that's startup money. And banks historically has not allowed lend money. We have food deserts in our communities. We also have banking deserts where we put our money into these banks and they don't give us opportunity to access that capital or purchase a home. I saw somebody about home purchasing, which is very important. We had the lowest home ownership rate in this country, right? All those things are based on economics and businesses. So I would just say again, we have a lot of work to do. We have some very bright people in our legislation that are trying to do things to make things change. And lastly, one thing I will say at the state that we have to do is we need a disparity study. We need to know what our capabilities are as ethnic minorities in this state. We don't know that. Therefore, we don't have the opportunities as others have. So I'm gonna leave it at that. And actually, Steve, I'm gonna have to sign off because I have to go to my next point. But I appreciate you for having me that. And I think we need to have more of these conversations outside of February. I think we need to have them all year round. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Senator McCrory, and thank you for that framing. I think you're right that there is a powerful responsibility here and almost a complicity in the way that so many of our institutions have stood in the way rather than out of the way of that historical entrepreneurship that you've seen in the Black community. And the whole idea of being able to access resources and then bringing those resources back into community, I think the last thing any of us want to see is yet another diaspora where all of that promise, all of that asset, all of that resource that is in our young people be dispersed into the four winds because under this notion that we might do better somewhere else, independent of each other. So thank you for that, Senator McCrory. Representative Porter. Ms. Hosky, did you want to say something? Because I'll turn right back to you.
I just wanted to just chime in a little bit about what Senator McCrory just did. I also sit on the board, NBI board, with Senator McCrory and Dr. Fred on the state level. And he's absolutely right as it talks about access to capital. And so I know that we have some listeners and people who are watching and they're saying, yeah, we need access to capital. And I agree 110%. Actually, that was one of the barriers that stopped me from starting my business. But because we mentioned real estate, I have to say this. It was my real estate investment that I was able to tap into when I could not get access to capital. And so I want people and I want our people to understand the power of real estate. It is powerful. Equity. Equity is why we need to buy properties. Equity, the equation of equity is the difference between what you owe on the property and its value. There is no value in renting. And so as we talk about the redlining, right? Why do you think they redlined us? Why do you think Black people were redlined and kept out of certain areas so that we cannot create wealth? Wealth is in real estate. And that's why I created 1,000 Black families to close that wealth gap and create generational wealth. So I want us to think as we have these barriers that use that creative mindset. You can invest in real estate to simply fund your business. Be unstoppable entrepreneurs. So I just want to chime in there.
Thank you so much for that. You know, it should be a mystery to no one who is viewing this program tonight why it was that so many of our community, especially the Black community, was kept from owning property for so long. It is a tool for wealth building, and I really appreciate you saying that, because part of that breaking of intergenerational cycles of poverty is to own the land in which you live so that you can thrive on that very land. So thank you so much for that. Representative Porter, I want to come back to you as our labor co-chair. So often in the state of Connecticut, when we talk about workforce and we talk about labor and opportunity, we talk about it in the context of filling somebody else's seat. As I said before, to either push a button for them or pull a lever for them. But there's so much more to that when it comes to your jurisdiction, the future of work, as you and I have talked about before. So tell us a little bit about the role that you see in your leadership in promoting entrepreneurship and the future of work for the Black community.
Thank you so much for that question, Steve. Very good question. And I tell you, when I think about thinking outside the box, because I believe that's where we live, as much as they tried to put us in a box, we do much better outside the box. And we've always talked about workforce development, mainly in terms for, adult folks. And I think where we need to be headed, especially through this pandemic and post-COVID, is a concentration on youth workforce development, right, and entrepreneurship programs, because I think that will build us a much more promising future when we train our youth and the adults, right, with the skills that are needed for the 21st century workplace. We open doors that we never thought could be open. And it's encouraging because they respond constructively to the community needs. And I think that is one of the things that we really have to hone in going forward when we talk about entrepreneurship. Senator McCrory touched on it a little bit. You know, we need to learn how to spend money in our own communities. Our own communities is the only place where a dollar circulates for less than an hour once we're paid. And I think that that is significant because it ties into the things that we really need to know about. Everything that we do in labor is to support people, right? To earn more and to participate in the future, but not as employees. I think the focus, as far as me cheering and where I see us going, is actually creating that pathway to prosperity. You know, the thing that everybody's talking about, the wealth building, the equation that we got left out of maliciously and intentionally. And I don't want us to forget that there was a time, you know, there was Black Wall Street, Tulsa, and many other instances and places in history where we were doing really well. You know, Reconstruction was working. And then they figured that out and they started to dismantle a system that really did give a level playing field. They took us out of politics, you know, let's talk about that. We talked about housing, education plays a part in this, but politics too. This is where the power is. This is where the decisions are made. And we have to bring people into civic engagement along with all of the other skill sets that are necessary to be successful entrepreneurs. And it's something that we're born with. Let's face it. I mean, we built this country on our back. We did this. So when you talk about astronomy, science, math, I don't care what it is, we invented it. So the fact that our children struggle in math and reading is, it's really questionable. And it's definitely fixable, right? Because we are the original inventors. So as the labor chair, I'm looking at ways to really advance from the crib, from the cradle, the young people, our future, the generations that will come and lead us, you know, the way that our ancestors saw us going. So I think that's really what I think about when I think outside of the box when it comes to labor, because we're doing a lot of things according to custom and according to the way they've always been done. But I'm a firm believer that, you know, you're not going to get a different result until you try something different. And I really do want to invest in the promise of our future. I'm tired of us calling our kids at-risk youth. At-risk youth. I call them at-promise youth, because I know if we would just, you know, nurture them and pour into them the way we need to, that we would yield all kind of interest, all kind of benefits, and not just for our community. This would benefit all communities, because when Black communities do well, every community does well. And that's been seen because of the service that we provide for others. We've carried people's water for way too long. It is time for us to carry our own water, to build our own bridges, to build our own, you know, there's a lack. The food desert that was talked about. We have so many needs right now that are actually birthing businesses. My daughter, her boyfriend, I mean, like these young people that I see, I don't know if you've noticed, but they have clothing lines now. And it ain't Fendi, it ain't Gucci, and I'm fine with that. Sweatshirt, a hoodie from a young brother who's doing his own apparel. And it was, I thought I was gonna pay about $20, $25. You know, he said 45. I was like, what? And then I thought about it. And I was like, you know what? But if this said Gucci or Fendi or Donna Karan or anything else on it, I wouldn't be questioning how much it costs. I'd be going to pay whatever was on the price tag. So I think that that's what we really need to do. We need to start centering our purpose back into our community so that we can elevate our people to prosperity that's just unbelievable, unimaginable. And that's a little bit, I'll stop there because, you know, I could go on forever, but I'm just so excited that you've given us this platform and this opportunity to talk about ways to bring the most disenfranchised, the most marginalized, and the most criminalized communities up. It's time.
Thank you so much, Rep. Porter. You know, and I want everybody to feel like you can chime in whenever you want. Just use your hand raise function or just speak out. We're a small family here, and think of us as being around a campfire. But I'm going to come back to you, Ms. Williams, because I want to focus a little bit on what you described, which is you build a business in order to provide opportunities for a family member who you knew would be barred from those opportunities. Tell us a little bit more about that, because that is powerful.
So yes, we had a family member who was incarcerated for over 25 years, basically a life sentence. And even though he was being granted parole, we knew that, you know, they were just expecting him to mess up so he can go right back. So, you know, I have a ton of those examples, unfortunately, in my family that I can say, you know, this person has, you know, gone through the criminal justice system and, you know, they end up right back in the same spot, and it's a revolving door. So, you know, for us, for that, at that particular moment, it was important for us to see, okay, well, what can we do to stop that? How can we be a real support? Because we have, you know, they come out, they have the parole officer, they have their programs that they're going to, and they're going around in the cycle, but who's really going to be the support for this person to really break the cycle for that? And so, yeah, it was a family member that inspired this business. But then when that situation didn't work out, and not that that person went back to jail, it just, the business wasn't for him. We didn't let it stop us. Like, there's how many other people in the same situation. So many of the panelists spoke about kids and teaching our kids. And that is like my passion. So I'm a mentor in my town. I live in Naugatuck. I'm a mentor in my town. I do a lot with Naugatuck Youth Services. I actually sit on the board of directors for them. I'm originally born and raised in Bridgeport, a product, both me and my husband, a product of Bridgeport. And we know more than anybody how overlooked the youth are. And we wonder why they're getting in trouble. We're wondering why they're going to jail. We're wondering why they're turning to gangs. You know, we just started hiring youth that are what they call juvenile delinquents, what they call them. And it's like, once you get these kids under your wings and they see that you hear them, you see them for more than that, you can totally change their lives around. So we started the business, of course, for that family member. That was our passion. That was our purpose at that moment. And, we knew that, he would, supervise, and he would hire and create jobs for other people. But it is really important that the youth get into this as soon as possible. One of the representatives, I was trying to take notes while everybody was speaking. One of the representatives talked about, bringing his daughter to the pop-up shop. So I have 4 children. My oldest is 25. I have a senior that's going to college, and he's going to college for business management, of course. I have a junior in high school, and then I have a 5th grader. So I tell this story often because my 25-year-old, she hated anything school related. She hated it. If it wasn't social, she hated it. And so she struggled with math. She struggled with science. But at that time, she was really passionate about fashion design. I did not want her to be a fashion designer. Because at first, like 2 years earlier, she had wanted to be a scientist. And then she went from being a scientist to a fashion designer. And I'm like, no, what happened to finding the cure for cancer? Like, no, let's stick there. But she was adamant about being in fashion. So I was a young mom, but what I did is I used what she was passionate about to teach her what she needed to learn in school. And I found that her mind just started to expand and expand and expand. Now this 25-year-old, she's an avid reader. She's really, when I tell you she's really into politics, she's really into like all the things that I thought that she would like shy away from or not want to be a part of, she loves it. I feel like she is a great citizen. She's a great person, but I started where her interest was and built on that. Even from the point of her, I used to call her my young Oprah, because she was in fifth grade, fourth or fifth grade. And her principal, I was the president of the PTA, and me and her principal had a really great relationship. So she called me and she goes, "Do you know your daughter done started a business?" And I'm like, "Well, what did she do?" She's like, "Some little boy knows how to draw real good, so she told him she would sell his pictures for 50 cents. He'll get 25 and she'll get 25." She said, your daughter done talked me into buying about 5 pictures and displaying them in the front so she can get more promotion for her business." And to me, that wasn't something that she, was taught per se, but that was something that she had in her. So of course, this daughter now is working on her business plan. This daughter now is working on, she has a great job, but she's working on how she's going to work for herself. So when we look at the kids, we have to stop looking at them as a burden, as a nuisance, as, just, people that we push to the side, and look at them as our future, because they are. Like, they are, our times are coming up, and it's their time to usher them in. So anything that teaches them life skills, real life skills, because we have some schools that have certain programs within the schools that are just like, okay, yeah, they're really not going to use that once they get out of school. But some real life skills within the classroom at a young age will really help them, step by step, being an entrepreneur, being whatever it is that they want to be. But at least they'll have the tools, because that's one area where I say, I had the passion, I had the ideas, I had the experience with the paperwork, but really to know step by step how to start a business, I struggled with that. And there's some things that could have made my life a lot easier that I didn't know. And my son said to me, maybe I should go to school for something else other than business, because you already own the business. So we already have that. And I'm like, no, you learn how to do it the right way. You learn how to, be able to do all the checks and balances that we didn't, that we had to learn, on our own. And another thing that I really feel that we can do, especially since we have representatives, on this panel, is have some type of mentorship program for small businesses. Like, that to me is like so critical for, a business that you have all the success, but, we have all these little silo businesses that are struggling. One thing happens and they're done. COVID almost took us out in 2020. We're a cleaning business, but people would think, well, everybody wants cleaning, but no, we were in quarantine, and there were people like, no, I don't want you to come in my house. I don't want you to come here anymore. We lost about 70% of our clients for a period of time due to COVID. And so just having a mentorship, just having someone like, no, I don't need you to give me your blueprint, because your blueprint may not work for me, but I do need someone to maybe just guide me, just, tell me to go this direction. I have a friend that I met in a PLTI class that I took a few years ago, and she also owns a business. She's Hispanic, and she also owns a business in Woodbury. And every time she sees anything, like any type of money, any type of this, whatever, loans or whatever, she's always sending it to me. Had it not been for her, there's so many things that I would not have known to do. When people say, well, how would you not know? Like, it's on the internet, it's on this. But when you're actually working your business and starting your business, you got your head in the groundwork, like you hold like 20 billion hats. You don't have time to really sit and do the research that you need, because you're actively in it. You're actively dealing with putting out the fires and servicing the clients and hiring the staff and all of those things. So I didn't have a lot of the information, and I thank God for her that she was able to send me these things. But if we can, yes, focus on the kids, that is our future. That is our gold. That is our that is our wealth. That is our wealth. And also mentorship for small businesses, especially, with the representatives, like you guys, your communities. None of you guys, I think, represent my community, but if we knew that, I can call my state rep and say, hey, I don't know what to do to even become a minority business. I'm gonna say this real quick and then I'm gonna be done. But when we first started, we started this business in 2017. I had a friend who also owns a business tell me, she was like, oh, I know this guy who will help you become a minority-owned business in the state. And then that way you can bid for state contracts and things like that. So this is like 2018, 2019. She tells me this. And I'm like, okay, great. Yes, give him my information because we would love to expand into that, so on and so forth. She goes, but one thing, if he looks at your website and he doesn't like your website, he's not going to work with you. So I'm like, okay, all right. Well, I'm thinking we have a professional website. You know, we have we're accredited, A+ accreditation from the Better Business Bureau. We have where people can book appointments online. Like we have a bunch of, you know, features that, you know, we're not just something that we just put up there real quick. It was really, we paid money for it. So I'm thinking, oh yeah, definitely he'll call me. He did. And I was like, okay, like, well, did he give you any feedback? No, he just was not interested. But this was somebody who sat in a seat of in a town, in a position to help another. Even if you saw my website and you didn't like what you saw, help me. Don't ignore me. Don't reject me. Help me, because I'm open for it. I'm learning. You know, tell me what I need to do to be more professional, to be more polished. Like I pride myself on my professionalism. I pride myself on, you know, when anyone calls our office phone, you know, they don't know what ethnicity anyone is. They just know that this is a professional person that's answering the phone, and you know, I'm gonna get treated in a professional manner. So help me. Don't ignore me. Don't push me to the side. Don't categorize me as, you know, just being not really serious about my brand or my business. And also, you know, in the mentorship, explaining the importance of a brand. You know, you're not just a business, you are a brand. Your name is everything. What you post on social media is everything. It's a part of your brand. It's a part of building you. And these are things that I just feel that, you know, us small businesses need, and we need the support, we need mentorship, and we need to focus on our babies.
That is so valuable. Thank you so much for that. You know, I bet our viewers that are watching now, if they just listen to what you just described, the challenges, but also the opportunities and those couple of hallmarks, mentorship being one of them, that's a beautiful roadmap. Dr. McKinney, your reflections.
Well, I appreciate what Ms. Williams said and described about her business. I think that was there were a lot of gems in what she just said, and any entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs out there need to listen very carefully and take notes. First of all, Ms. Williams, I'll tell you, if you're not certified by the state, I think you should still pursue that. And if you need some help, you can call me. I'm certain my business, I have a business as well. So I'm not just an academic egghead sitting in an ivory tower telling people what to do all the time. So I run a business that's called BJM Solutions. And we are an economic consulting firm, and we provide help to large organizations, but also small organizations. And so we are state certified, but we're also certified with the organization that I used to run called the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council, which gives you access to private sector companies that participate in that organization. So I encourage you to get certified. It's kind of an onerous process. It's intrusive, but I think once you're done, and it can provide some value to your company if you use it right. I mean, I will guarantee you this. If you go through the process and pain of getting certified and hang that certificate on your wall, and that's all it does, it will not do anything. Money will not come through that wall certificate to you or into your bank account. You've got to work it. So it's another marketing tool. But I think what you said is really spot on. That this is a struggle. There are no guarantees in business. Even successful businesses have challenges. But I want to go back to something you said about young people and children. You know, for many years, one of the challenges in the Black community was really anti-entrepreneurial because of that history that we talked about. I believe it was Roberta may have talked about, or maybe Representative Porter talked about Tulsa in 1921 when they burned Black Wall Street. Well, that wasn't the only town in America that had that kind of entrepreneurial tradition. I was born in Arkansas, and there was a town in Arkansas called Blacksville that was started by a man named Pickens Black. And Pickens Black was a former slave from Alabama. And he moved north to Arkansas. Again, this is a slave. He acquired over 5,000 acres of land, incorporated his town. His children, his son became an aviator in the early 20th century and ran the biggest aviation firm in Arkansas. And so, you know, it really doesn't matter where you come from. It's where you're going. And I think that's a message we have to tell our children. And we have to tell our children, you know, sometimes we as parents, sometimes we stifle them. We tell them, you know, you got to do this. You got to do it this way. And I understand that because, you know, we as parents and people who love our children and our grandchildren, you know, we want them to be successful. We don't want them to be harmed. But in entrepreneurship, it's really kind of the opposite. You got to let them fall. You got to let them get back up, brush themselves off, and tell them to get back in the fight. And that's how you become successful. And it doesn't really matter what you want to do. You know, again, in my family in Arkansas, they used to tell us, look, you might as well not complain. You got to be twice as good as the white boy. You got to be twice as good. Not as good, twice as good. And the other thing, it doesn't matter what you do. You want to clean streets, be the best street cleaner. You want to clean clothes, be the best clothes cleaner. You want to rap, be the best rapper. It doesn't matter, but we have to support those kids in their pursuit of their dreams. They're not living our life, they're living their life. And if we can do that, instill that confidence and say, hey, you might not make it this time, but you'll make it the next time. And if you don't make it that time, you'll make it the next time. You get back in the fight. And that's the lesson we have to teach our children.
Dr. Harris, that is so powerful. And just this notion of raising bosses. You know, what was interesting is, you know, I come from a family where you were told you have a couple of choices. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, because we don't have any of those in our family yet. So you get to choose. And what was interesting is that by being an entrepreneur, you get to be the employer for doctors, lawyers, and engineers. Yeah. And that's what's so powerful, is that freedom that you described, that freedom of your own agency. So when I share your vision, that when I say to parents, you know, when parents ask, what can I do, right? Raise bosses, because they work for themselves or somebody else, they will always have full custody of their power and the vision for themselves and their families. So thank you for saying that, Dr. McKinney. Dr. Harris, how do we raise bosses?
Raising bosses. Good point. I also have children. And so I have a 26-year-old, I have a 15, and I have a 13. So as it relates to what I attempt to instill in them, is, you know, that work ethic that comes from my father from Opelika, Alabama, and the honor and nobility in all work. And as Dr. McKinney said, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it right. If you're going to put the name of Harris on it, it should be to a certain standard. And as we talk about raising bosses, I would suggest that it's the values that we instill in them, right? And that is transferable across industries or entrepreneurship or whatever they elect to do, but that they're going to do it in a certain way, that they're going to apply themselves, that they're going to be the best in that. And I think that some of this ties back to the history that we are talking about and where you come from, and whether that's a CEO or president of a college or a business owner, that is that you come from this stock and the science and the math and all of these principles and values that go into being a boss, right? And I think it also has to do with our belief in our youth, which is what I do here at Capitol. And we talk about moving from at-risk to opportunity youth, right? And on the verge of success, I think, is another principle and whether that's the first time or the third time that individuals. My brother is actually owns his own business. He lives in Australia. There's not a lot of us in Australia, but he owns a travel business. And as a matter of fact, when he, prior to doing what he's doing for American Express, then travel in the Caribbean, but I wanted to work himself. He went to a black college, one of the best business schools, Florida A&M, the SBI program, and he used what he did in college, and he used the lessons that he learned from American Express and other companies to launch his own business. And so, you know, what I suggest is relates to raising bosses, that much of it is formulaic, and it's about which I suggest alluded to that we've always had amongst our people, right? So as we talks about raising, I would suggest that it's about the values and it's about the principles we instill in our ending, looking and will be. And so once again, I think we have the formulas, and it's a matter of having the system, folks being to share and argue and these balls.
Hey, Steve, I definitely want to chime in with the raising bosses. Can you hear me? You can hear me?
Perfect.
Okay. Yes, definitely want to chime in on raising bosses, because I was intentional about raising bosses, especially my daughter, a female, Black African-American female, intentional about raising a boss. And one of the things that I did is I never talked to her like a child. I was intentional of talking to her like she was a business owner. When she was in a car seat, and so I'll never forget that she was a little special when I was getting off at exit 5 in New Haven, when I had my first office on E Street, and I hear the car seat rocking from side to side, and I looked back and I was like, "What's up, Mama? You okay?" She said in the car seat, "Mom, you need to get a sign that has an arrow that says Outreach Property Management, so when people get off the highway, they know where to find you." I was like, say no more. I was raised where my mother told me to stay in a child's place. You don't talk to adults, you stay in a child's place. But because I saw that in her, I always talked to her like a partner. And I also told her, don't let no one control your money. You control your money. Don't ever allow anyone to set how much they think you're worth in numbers. You do that. And she right now has recently joined my company as a vice president and is on billboards with me in Georgia, 6 billboards in Georgia. She has a team that she is working, that's working underneath her in my company for 1,000 Black families. She helped me strategize this company in the house, and she brought the talents that she acquired and the knowledge that she acquired from Morgan State University. And so she learned a lot of this technology and was able to bring that technology to my company and level it up. So it's great. Just also when you're raising bosses, we also need to, as Ms. Williams has stated about cultivating that entrepreneurial spirit. Bosses think differently. Like when you're an entrepreneur, you think differently. She got fired from her first job. She got fired because she saw where things she thought was unfair and things weren't going in a systematic way. Now, I raised her to be a boss. I raised her to think certain ways. So you guys, this is the funny note, guys. And this is a serious conversation, but here's the funny note. So here she is, 16 with her first job, and she's making subs. And so there were some type of things that were happening on a job, and you had certain parking places that you were supposed to park in, and some people weren't adhering to it. So my little boss decided that she was gonna call a meeting with her bosses. So she called the meeting with her bosses, had a tally of things that went wrong, along with the solutions on how to implement it to her bosses that were like in their 30s. And she wondered what went wrong and why she got fired. So I'm saying that that mentality of bosses also come with sometimes being bold as well. Bosses need to be bold, and you got to be able to nurture that in her. To me, I said to her, I said, Mama, what did you learn because you got fired? Because she came home to me crying. I said, what did you learn when you got fired? And I couldn't say anything when she said, well, I learned I can't work for nobody. Good. Give me a high five. We good. So intentional about raising bosses. My son just launched his business as well. And my oldest son is also he started a nonprofit organization. So I have 3 bosses. All 3 of my children are bosses. So I was intentional about that.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hosky. You know, for the benefit of our viewers, whether it's Dr. McKinney, Dr. Harris, Ms. Williams, Ms. Hosky, and of course our elected people, but what you have here is a wealth of entrepreneurship, a wealth of leadership. And if you want to find more information on any one of our panelists, come to our Facebook site. We can get you information there, or reach out to the commission so that you can learn more about these entrepreneurs and leaders in the Black community. I want to turn to our state leaders, because I want to give you an opportunity as we come to the close of our hour and a half together, just to talk about some of the resourcing, the ways that, in your view, we as a state help or stay out of the way to promote entrepreneurs in the Black community. Representative Gibson, I'll start with you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
How do we as a state help people who want to be entrepreneurs, or how do we stay out of the way?
Well, doing things as we're doing tonight is one definite ways that we help people. And actually, again, like Senator McCrory said before he left, this should not be just during Black History Month, which should be 365 anyway. We need to have more of these discussions, and we need to invite more people in and examples of excellence, because what you've seen tonight is examples of excellence. So us as state leaders, we need to make sure that people understand that there's resources out there to help you start a business. There's resources as far as getting small business loans, mentoring you as to how to keep your business afloat, how to help with employees. Starting your own business does not have to be something that's a big monster or something that's to be afraid of. Tonight we heard a lot about mentality. We need to let people know, and as state reps and Rep. Ford, I'm sure that you can agree with this, that we have to teach people that teach our young people and anyone that we're talking about tonight that there's a standard of excellence, and that you are good enough, and nothing is too big for you to. I'm just listening here thinking about myself, and I'm not a student or a child anymore, but there's things that I have done or things I have access to, like, wait a minute, Bobby, you need to follow through on that. So, I'm going to do my best, based on this conversation on things that we've done, to make sure that we continue to fight, make sure we spread the word, and make sure that we foster that sense of entrepreneurship in our kids, because it's there. It's just that we got to foster it, and we just got to help it to come out.
Thank you, sir. Representative Porter, your thoughts and guidance.
Yes, thank you. And I certainly do agree, Representative Gibson. We don't need, well, I guess we do at times. As Dr. McKinney said, stay out the way and, let them do what they do. Let them make their mistakes. That's where the growth is. But I do think that, we can absolutely help in building pathways from deficit to asset models, right? Teaching them that in every failure, there's success right on the other side of that. Encouraging them to fail, because we know through failure is where, the real lived experience comes, which breeds and births all those promises. And that's why I like to call them, youth that promise, because I believe that every last one of us are pregnant with promises, just waiting to be born, waiting to be birthed. And I think that we have to be conducive with nurturing and creating safe and liberating spaces, and not counting on the system. Yes, I'm in the system, and it is my job to make that system better. Absolutely. But until we get there, we have to go back to the basics and start creating the systems that we grew up in. Dr. McKinney, you had me over here almost in tears because you conjured up Grandma Elmy. My Nana Puddin was speaking through you, because she told me, I don't care what you do. If you wash toilets, if you wash windows, I don't care what it is, you be the best at it. Because once you're the best at something, everything else will come to you. It's the law of attraction. And the sad thing about it is we were taught that we have to be twice as good, but I'm here to tell you, we was born twice as good, you know? And that's just what it is. The original folks come with that packaging. And I think that that's something that we need to instill in our children too. And in our adults who haven't been taught that, because everyone is not getting the kind of nurturing and training that they deserve, that they need. So we've got to get back to being a village. We've got to get back to loving and caring about one another and having authentic concern for one another's well-being. Because when one succeeds, we all succeed. And the thing that I thought about also that my grandmother would say is, you know, when you depend on master to feed you, you also give him the power to starve you. So, you know, this idea of creating bosses is essential. You know, it's important, and we have to remember that. And I hope that that is what COVID is teaching us, because COVID has only highlighted and exacerbated what was always there pre-COVID, right? We've been dependent on master to feed us. We've been dependent on these jobs. And now we look, essential workers who used to be called service workers, but now we're essential workers, are the Black and brown folks that made sure that the grocery stores stayed open, made sure that the gas stations were open, you know, made sure that our elderly people in these nursing homes and long care were being properly taken care of, putting themselves on the line. So let's make sure as those folks, we invest in ourselves and that we always take care of home first. And I think once we begin to do that, we will learn that's truly who we are. And when we rise, everyone rises. We are the tide that rises all ships. We are, because that's just who we were made to be. I wanted to touch on some resources for Mrs. Williams, because you did mention, you know, we have HEDCO. It's a Connecticut small business engine, and they do a lot of work to empower small businesses. They have services, they have loan programs, grants. Throughout this pandemic, they have been instrumental in providing panels such as these and workshops to educate people on these PPP loans that are coming down from the federal government, how to take advantage of UI, all kind of things that we don't necessarily know because we're not in the know. We're too busy struggling. But they are there. And also we have the Women's Business Development Council. And they provide training, education, and they teach all of the things that are necessary for women to launch and scale their businesses. They've been doing tremendous work throughout this pandemic. And there are several other resources. Like Mr. Hernandez said, you guys have access to us, and we have access to networks and resources and people and high places, and it's our job to get this done. So spread the word, because everyone doesn't know to call their state legislator, right? They don't know who their representative or their senator is. So when you're having these conversations, have those conversations as well. You know, question them. Well, who's your elected official? Because I think they could help you, you know, put you in touch with who you need to be in touch with. So it's not even a matter of knowing who to contact right out the gate. If you know who your state legislator is, you know, we get to do that for you. So make sure that you access us and use us. We are here to serve the people, right? And I truly believe that we are servants, and we get elected to do that work. And I take it very seriously. One of the most humble things I've ever done, besides having kids and grandkids, is serving the state of Connecticut in this capacity. So Steve, I just want to say thank you so much for doing what you always do. You bring the fire and the education. The last thing I will mention, Senator McCrory talked about a disparity study. Labor has actually raised a disparity study. This isn't the first time, but we're hoping that we get somewhere this time. So for all of you guys out there, I need you to make sure that you're reaching out, that you're supporting that bill, talking to your elected officials, asking them to support the bill, and telling the governor we need the funding to make it happen, because it's not cheap, but it is so worth it. Once we find out where the holes are, then we can figure out what the resources are to plug those holes. And I'm here to tell you the people closest to the problem are closest to the solutions. So you all already know what we need to do. Make sure your legislators do as well. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much, Representative Porter. And I would encourage that whomever it is that is looking to find either a person, an organization, or an institution to do a disparity study, look at home first. Because right on the street, right up the corner, and right down the way, there are professionals, there are researchers right here in the state of Connecticut who could do that disparity study. We live it here and we can do it here. But I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for your contribution tonight. You are leaders in your communities. You are shining examples of the potential of the Black community in the state of Connecticut and everywhere. And I promise you that Black history, Black potential, Black influence, and Black power are not limited to the month of February, and we will not limit it there either. So we will continue these conversations, and I look forward to having them with you. So thank each and every one of you, and let's keep talking.